Jonathan. Thank you for joining us today. How's things going?
Good. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. Love the concept. Love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I love hosting. This is so much fun. Our guests are just so amazing. Plus the sector, how can you not love it? Well, one of the things we asked leading on from that is your journey into early learning. How did it happen? Can you share your story with us?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. Um, I don't know if it's different to most. It certainly feels like it's different to most when I talk to a lot of people from the sector. They've been here for a long time. Mine was a bit of a combination of skills and, I guess, desire, if you could put it that way, originally. And so I came from a software as a service background in sales, and got the opportunity. I kind of tapped on the shoulder to say, "Hey, would you be interested in a role at Xplor at the time?" And for me, it was a really neat combination of I love software as a service because I love solving problems for customers. And then combine that with a mission driven organization that had this, hey, we're building up the next generation, trying to equip young people. I loved what they stood for. And so for me, when I first entered the sector, it was that combination of my skill set versus passion and being able to do something that's good for the world, really, that came together. And
Yeah.
then kind of evolved since then to now I'm a father, so I have a daughter in care, um, which is amazing. And then now we're expecting our second, and so it's an evolving journey for me.
So there's a bit of a personal and a work side to it. So now you can see the benefits.
Completely, completely. You see the benefits both of having your child in care, see the benefits of even what we at Xplore sell and do, see the benefits of what our customers, what our vendor partners do. It's very, very special.
It is. And do you know what, to be honest, it's quite exciting, isn't it?
It is.
It is. And
Yeah,
and
it's
I mean I think you and I are a bit passionate about the sector anyway. I mean, I've been in it a long, long time, but just having that vision that we can help people, that we can help the next generation, that we're doing something really good for the world.
totally, totally. I mean, one of the challenges of being in the sector, particularly in technology, and I'm sure you know this, is so many people want so many good things and you can't build everything all at once. And so it's like part of that is what I like doing within the sector is being like, okay, what can we solve? What are we going to help you with? And just the continued journey that we're on with everyone. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I'm actually going to hit you up a little bit later about that, how
I'm excited.
on that. Now, look, what we're going to talk about today is navigating complex stakeholder relationships in early learning. Now, what skills and strategies do you believe are essential for a leader in the sector to effectively manage and align the needs of such a diverse group of stakeholders? Like, seriously, from federal government, state government, parents, staff, not for profits, children in care. It's like amazing how many people are our stakeholders.
Yeah, it's actually, and particularly if you're in a center, I know a lot of my customers are at the enterprise level. And so they may even have before and after school care, they may have long day care, they may have kinder, all within one environment. And so then there's multiple stakeholders within that, multiple customer types within that, multiple vendors within that. And so how do they bring that all together?
Let alone
Um,
the demographics, right?
totally, yeah. Where their customers are located, where their services are located. What does that mean for how they operate? Language differences. There's so much even beyond.
Cultural,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
Australia's remote, isn't it? We're remote
it
as
is.
well. Like, yeah,
Um, I think the first thing that I actually wrote down when I thought about this question was communication is critical. In that, it sounds like a really basic strategy, I think, for leaders, but I think for all of the leaders that are operating within this complex environment, being able to communicate is so important. Both being able to say to one stakeholder, say the government, yep, this is what you need, and actually interpret what they're wanting, but then being able to bring them together as part of communication and communicate to them as groups. And the second part of that, though, is also I think it's really important that we're compartmentalized with communication. So, as an example, I, as a parent, don't really typically care too much about what the government is saying when they're saying, "Hey, what are you doing for your PIP?" As an example, I, as the parent, I'd like that has very little relevance to me, but obviously to the staff, it has huge relevance, right? And to them being able to attract new families and what they need to do at a service level. So, really critically important the way they're communicating that back to the government. But then back to their own customers, it actually needs to translate slightly differently to, hey, how are we thinking about child safety? Is your child engaged? Are they safe? Are they having a good time? And do you know that? that's what I care about as a parent.
Yeah.
Other things they need to manage. Um, so yeah, a really big thing I think is the understanding how to be compartmentalized and shift your message to the right audience that you're talking to at the right time.
That is such a key factor in getting it right. And you're a parent. I'm a parent. Mine aren't in care anymore, but the fact that when you're that parent, it's amazing, isn't it? How all of a sudden driven you are about the safeguarding of your child, the
Completely.
learning. It's like you become this different person because you're advocating differently from what we do as our professional life.
Yeah, it's a totally different type of engagement. And I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones where there is some crossover, which I think is lucky. Like other people might go, no, we don't want any crossover. Like just take them and that's it. The nuance of being able to look at what you do as a parent and go, okay, how do we solve those problems? But you're exactly right. Like I, as a parent, when I drop my child at care, want to know that she's happy. She likes her educators, which she does. Thankfully, we have a great service. She loves her educators. Always wants more food. That's classic for a little child. Um, but yeah, then it's how do we help them engage with what she's doing? How do we promote her as a family in terms of learning? What technology enables that? What they're doing at a center level in terms of managing government expectations. Like as a parent, oh guys, I really don't mind. But then in my job, I care really a lot about that because that's part
Yeah,
of what we exist
yeah.
to do is help solve that problem for them.
Yeah. And it's funny now, knowing what I know now to what I did when my children were in care 30 years ago now. But if I was, looking now, the questions I would ask would be so different to 30 years ago. It
Yeah,
would be around your systems, your processes, knowing what I know. And that's what's so great to have you and be able to share what a centre needs to know from a parent perspective, but also how do you go back and get that from
yeah,
your providers, from your government, from anyone who's that stakeholder that can support you.
yeah. You're totally right. And like I feel really privileged to be in that position of having it as the kind of the dual role that I do, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is. Oh no, I'm the same. I feel very privileged as well. So, like, are there any tools that you would recommend in helping handle these relationships? Where do they go? What do they do? In a center. I'm in an organization. I'm thinking we need change. We need to promote change around our practice, our solutions. We all know the administration that those services
Yeah,
do is wild.
it is. It
Um,
is.
so how do we get those services to know what's out there? And this podcast hopefully reaches them and tells them, hey, there is more to it than what you're doing, or you can change. What do you have in your toolkit?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think firstly, let's just acknowledge what educators do day to day. Like the compliance that they do, the fact that they're looking after our children, multiple children, just incredible job. So just acknowledge any educators that are listening to this. Thank you for what you guys do. We truly appreciate
Yeah,
it.
big thank you.
Um, I'm going to start actually further up. So I think technology at the beginning, it would align to the first question of like what skills the leaders need. And I say technology in that technology can be harnessed in exceptionally powerful ways, like exceptionally powerful. I'll come to what tools would I recommend, and people would say I'm biased because I would definitely recommend our own software. But even if I think about our own software, like I'll say one part of our software, right, the communication center, the ability to communicate to all of the families in your service, to be able to tailor that communication, to get that out quickly to families if there's something that you need to do, the ability to do that quickly, understand how it works, manage inflows, see who's read it, like just understanding deeply what your technology enables you to do, and then being able to apply, I'm going to call it outside of the box thinking as a leader to say, hey, what else can we use our technology base for? Because one of the things that leaders don't want to do is end up in a world where they're using 15 different technologies to achieve outcomes that potentially three could. And so there's a yeah, I'm sure you've seen this, and part of that is integration, right? It's kind of like the integration that OnePlace and Xplor have. Is
Yeah,
how do you
absolutely.
align with softwares or technologies that enable you to make your job easier, that have the ability to do things, and it doesn't always have to be this is the exact specification. And I think this is where partnership between vendors and customers is really important is what is the outcome you're trying to achieve as a customer? How could we get there using the technology as it is a really great question for partnership to happen with technology vendor like us, Xplor, and any of our customers, or if you're thinking about looking at us. It would be the same for one place. You guys would do this all the time.
Absolutely.
Got technology that is ridiculously powerful, in our cases, like insanely powerful. And so how can you harness that and use it to its maximum potential?
And without necessarily overwhelming someone who doesn't need to use it to the capacity that they've got it. It all comes down to the user level, right? And what they need to see.
That's right.
Without overwhelming them with things they don't need to see.
That's right. And like the customers could, your vendors can help you solve that problem. So if you're a leader listening to this and you're thinking, how do I understand the breadth of the technology? But then at a functional level, I'd say, at least if you're working with Xplor, the first step is, hey, let's get together and talk at a really high level around what are the problems you're trying to solve. Then we'll have functional people come in and help your team specifically for that functional requirement. Is we don't want to have to solve everything at the top level and go, oh, hey, here's a 4-hour session on how to use all of our software. Let's go. These are the problems you're trying to solve. Let's align on those. And then you take functional snippets and go and solve those with functional training for your teams. Really good way to engage and actually roll out technology.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And one of the things that actually we're talking about, what I think where a lot of what I hear is about, having everything in one place, having everything all in one, for want of a better word.
Yep.
But that what does all in one mean? What are you looking for? Does it solve, like you were talking about, those outcomes? Because if nothing can be perfect, none of us are perfect.
That's right.
And it's horses for courses, but working out what outcomes you want without necessarily throwing away money into things you don't need.
Yeah, totally. And I also like that you say all in one, because it means I don't have to say it first. But you said, what tools would I recommend? And I think what we're seeing in the sector broadly is actually just customer desire, is to have a simplified model of engagement. Now, different customers and different vendors will talk about all-in-one very differently. And so I know we at Xplor have an all-in-one concept, but it's very focused on family engagement. And so, like for this question, the actual thing that I thought about, and I thought about this from my lens of being a parent, but then working in the sector, is the single most powerful app that I see is the Home app. And I say this with a very specific lens, and that is it enables me as a parent to engage with my center in the simplest path possible. And so if I need to do anything from updating bookings, updating payment details, seeing information about my child, getting messages from my center, engaging with content that the educators are sending out, I can do all of that on the app. Now, I know there are more things that I want to do. We could go into compliance. We could go into other areas that other apps do solve, and they do that really well. But I think about it at its very, very basic level for me as a parent. What does the Home app enable to do? It enables me to capture all of those things in one spot. And then if I reverse generate the process, if it's really simple for me as a family, I would hope that as that goes up the chain, it means it maintains its simplicity. Because the alternative is I then have, say, 4 or 5 different applications that I engage with as a family. Those systems don't necessarily talk to each other, is what we see in the sector. Sometimes they do, which is really positive. But where they're not talking to each other, all of a sudden you've got different information sets within your organization that you're then trying to consolidate, collaborate, bring together. Makes it hard to then do stakeholder management, makes it hard to provide the right information to different bodies, and makes your entire process complex and difficult.
And that goes back to that key you talk about, communication.
Correct. You're making it difficult for your team. Yeah, and you're replicating cycles, right? If you have a communication cycle that goes one, if you add another one, you've got another one, and you've got rings and rings and rings and rings. And by the time you get to the top of your ring, you're like, oh, did I miss something from the 6 levels down that I was meant to capture there? And so trying to simplify that. So from like selfishly, biasedly, whatever you want to say, like I love the Xplor product suite. I love the integrations and the partners that we have that enable things like compliance for our customers to do. But so I started the Home app thinking about what it's like for a parent or a family, a guardian, and why that's really important. And then the integrations that come with an integrated system that enables you to have consolidated reporting, information through your teams. Child safety becomes covered because you know where your children are at all times in your center. some really critical pieces that get solved just
Yeah.
by this really basic fundamental starting point.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, one of the things, I mean, we outside of our professional life or inside, it doesn't matter. How many apps do we all have on our phones, right? We
Yeah,
don't want more than we need. And as a parent, you don't want more than one about your child. Really.
exactly. Yeah,
And they don't need to know about the compliance and all of that in that back end. They just need to know what they need to know simply, quickly, and effectively.
yeah, totally, totally. I mean, I probably got 50 apps on my phone right now. Like they need to download even like passwords. Just there's so many passwords for different things, and
Oh.
which I yeah, there's too many is the
Wait
answer.
till you get to my age. I can't even remember them. I reset passwords every day. I actually now feel like, and that's the other thing, even to do that, if you're in a centre and you're a staff member, and all of a sudden you've forgotten that password and you've got 5 apps, you've forgotten that password to, or what, I mean, I know there are a lot of places doing single sign on, which we can
Yep,
talk about as well, of course. But even still, you still got to remember, right? And
totally.
all of a sudden, you've got 5 apps you've got to remember instead of 1 or 2. That's another 15 minutes at the minimum of
Yep,
trying to throw that into your day.
yep, yep. The simplicity. I mean, you mentioned single sign-on. I know it's a super important thing, both for. I feel like child safety is thrown around a lot in the sector
Yeah,
positively, right, and rightfully
you have
so.
to. Yeah,
And one of the things that I think about a lot with child safety is like protecting child data. And so, like we think about single sign-on, I have that lens on overlaid onto how do we protect child data. And so, single sign-on means that customers or my customers aren't accessing things off-site. They aren't using their personal devices when they're on at a center. And we've seen some horrific stories of places where personal devices have been abused, and it leads to really bad outcomes for
it
families,
does.
children, and it's abhorrent. It's so sad, and so I think about overlaying protection with things like single sign-on to protect the children, protect your staff from things like that happening. And I mean, we're thrilled to say we have it for both our educator software and our admin software, which is awesome.
And that's what we do it as well. So it's so important. And also, I know we spoke at the ECA conference recently, Jonathan, also talking about how integrations work and
Right.
that safety as well. That we are encrypted, that we do make sure our data is safe. And I
Yep.
know one of the other questions I get is, where's the data stored? How do we know it's safe? Right. So and quite often no one really understands what they're actually asking.
Yeah.
It's just that thing that we know to ask, but we don't really know why we have to ask it or what
Yep.
it means.
Yep. Yeah, and if anyone's listening to this and has that question, I mean, you could look at Data Privacy Acts of Australia, but I know certainly at Xplor, it's onshore, it's compliant, it's encrypted at rest, it's encrypted at transit. We've got you covered. Come talk to us is the
Yeah.
summary.
And one place is the same.
Yeah,
That's why we partner, right? That's why we partner. So, look, at times there might be challenges with maintaining transparency and trust among all of the groups that we've mentioned. How do you overcome those?
yeah, it's a really good question, and something that's not easy, I think, is the first statement here. But the first thing that I have noticed in terms of overcoming big projects is more group forums. I think we need to be able to engage as a collective group of stakeholders more. So I know there's examples where, say, we rolled out, there's been government compliance things that have rolled out over the past 12 months. So we've been able to actually operate in group forums. And so we've had industry bodies, government bodies, customers, and us as vendors all in the room at the same time trying to solve some of these compliance problems. And yes, there's a lot that has to come out, but when you get to the end of that process, the outcome is so much better than if we had have all been doing it siloed and different questions going backwards and forwards. So being able to consolidate and try and drive group forums, I think, is really critical. Within that, though, I would say if anyone is trying group forums, it's imperative that you align to the same goal. Because if you're operating in a group forum and you've got different people trying to drive different objectives, it's going to be a nightmare for the manager. And
It's going to
so
actually get ugly.
it will very quickly. And so that my advice there would be to make sure that you're all aligned on a shared goal. You drive to that goal, and then that's it. Make sure it's okay to go, yeah, we've completed the goal. Let's stop the project. Game on. If you need to do something else, start something else. But ending a project is a really positive thing. So that was the first thing I said was group forums, getting the right voices in the room together.
It's so easy to misalign, because what we think, if we don't express it, communication,
Yeah,
no one knows.
yeah,
It's all a mess. So, and look, and the other part of that communication and aligning those goals, of course, is having really good evidence and data about what you're trying to achieve.
yeah.
You can't just make it up as you go, and that's really what it's about, isn't it? Having those systems in place that you can get really good data to go back and to the team, to the forum, to the group, and prove this is what we're trying to do and this is why.
Yeah, you've covered probably the next critical piece in being able to overcome this, and that is clear documentation. And this is because not everyone can do group forums, right? If every single individual service in Australia said, "Hey, I want to do a group forum with the government, with an industry body, and with my vendor," like no one would have any time. We're talking about tens of thousands of services trying to do this, and so where maybe scale, maybe you don't have scale, maybe you're a single service and you're going, "Hey, how do I facilitate group forum?" Maybe you have the ability to engage with your vendor, like us, and if that's the case, what's going to be useful for us is for you to come with very clear documentation that says, hey, we've asked the questions of, say, CCS if there's federal policy changes, or state government if there's kinder changes happening to you. We've asked the government, this is what we've been told. Are you able to share what you're being told? And the clearer that communication is, right back to the first point, the clearer that communication is, the easier it is for us to help you, because we can say, yeah, this is exactly where we are. Look for proactive communications from your vendors, obviously. But if not, get clear on your comms, ask the questions, and you should be able to get to alignment pretty quickly in those cases.
And actually, that's a really simple thing to do, because everyone would have an Xplor account manager or someone that they can contact and work back with, and then use that. I mean, effectively, you guys have alignment with government and stakeholders. Use that line, right? Use that power that you have to help those single services, enterprise level, whoever it is, for that support. Really, it puts
Yeah,
it back right down to that educator level.
yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Every one of our customers will have an account manager. If you don't know who that is, reach out to me. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. But you're right. Leverage the resources that you have for your benefit. We're here to help. We want to support our customers.
Yeah, no, and it's so important, and especially, like, we know how busy services are, right? There's just, I don't know of any other sector that does the things and the regulations, the rules, the the managing of young children who can't speak for themselves, 0 to 3. The power is amazing. So whatever we can do, as that softwares, those solutions to support them, that's what we're here for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Um,
also why we love our jobs, I think.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love seeing, and I'm sure you're the same, when you get that call from an educator or a center manager or someone to say, you've just made my day. You've just saved me 10 hours or 5 hours, or you've saved me $1,000 on whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever someone's, love language. If we've helped them, that's where you really feel you've done something, and changed someone's life a little bit for the better.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
no, it's so good. Now, one of the questions we love to ask, Jonathan, and I know you and I could probably talk all day about best of breeds, integrations. We have, such aligned values. Um, what are the big challenges, do you think, facing the sector, from your opinion, in the next sort of 2 to 5 years?
So I've written down three that I've thought about. So the first one is content ownership. I think it's something that's going to start to be a really big discussion point, particularly with the prevalence of AI coming in and the ability for educators, teachers to readily create or ask systems to create content for them. Now, part of this is a real positive of if we're able to harness AI and use this type of technology, it's going to save educators a lot of time. But then I do think there's going to become a question of, okay, who owns the content? Is it the
Chat
right content?
GPT.
Right. Is it the right content? Is it authentic content? And authenticity as part of content ownership is going to be, I think, a discussion point that we're going to move in as a sector to try and figure out, how do we answer that? What does that mean for our children? What does that mean for our educators? How does that evolution take place? Something going to be very fascinating, at least for me, to watch.
Absolutely. And I think what we're talking about here also, if we think about AI, those children that they are educating, those 0 to 3s, when they are in their 20s, what will AI look like? So, how do we educate now to be smart about it so that
Yep.
that next generation isn't in the isn't in the mess that we sort of get ourselves into, I think, with technology and all the things that go on. And oh yeah,
Yeah.
and that of course age.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I'm a little bit younger than you, but like I'm going to be there, and then my daughter's going to be looking at me going, "Dad, you're so outdated." Like, and I'll be like, "No, you're exactly right. I probably already am, and that's okay. That's totally okay."
And that's the way of the world, right? But that, like you're talking about that AI, that next step, I'm not up to training anyone in it because it's something that's going to happen naturally, or just occurring in those next 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
where you've got those young educators, those young team of people who are going to be like experts.
Yep.
And we've got them training our next generation of children on how to be really smart with it.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point on training. It becomes like if the leaders training the next generation are not equipped on AI, you're going to see the next generation jumping a step and becoming the trainers quickly because they're aware of the technology and how it benefits their teams. And so,
Yeah,
there's a lot to
yeah.
unpack in this one
Oh,
little
oh,
topic.
there is. Oh, you've brought up such a great topic. I love talking about content and having it right, and because I mean I'm sure you're aware everyone does something different with their content.
Yes.
There's no getting away from the thing. It's actually a personal journey for an organization on the content that they do and the language that they use,
Yep. Totally. Totally.
even if we're working the same regulations.
Yeah. The second one, just in preference of looking up the time, is I
Oh
said
yeah,
child safety. I don't think this will ever not be a focus for the sector, truthfully. But I've said child safety physically and online, but had this lens again of AI. Like I've had conversations with customers already that are talking about there's AI tools that can scrape child images. What does that mean? How do we make sure we're protecting child data? So for me, as a software vendor, child safety specifically online I think is going to become a more prevalent topic of how are we making sure that child data is absolutely protected, child images are protected, that people aren't able to take advantage of that, to use that in the wrong ways. So I think we'll see that as a key conversation, particularly at board level of larger organizations. You see this already happening, and it will remain a focus, I think, that ongoing.
absolutely, absolutely. It's one of those things, and it goes hand in hand even with your content that you've said before. So it's all about managing that, not for now, but into the future. Those
Yeah.
next steps, looking forward, where do we need to be, and putting it in place now.
Yeah, and that's like the single sign-on discussion that we were having. It aligns to this point of how are we making sure that our staff have the right level of access at the right time to the right data. Single sign-on helps enable that, and then what do your vendors do to make sure your data's safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Now your third one.
Yeah, it's incorporating technology into child learning. And so we talk about child learning a lot. It's obviously critically important. And this comes from being a parent, right? I'm looking at it, and we try not to encourage our daughter to engage with technology, right? We're not like, go, yeah, sit, watch TV. She's only 15 months old, so it's not a huge part of what she does. And but as children are growing up now, technology is part of their life. I think it's something that we are seeing more and more. It's going to be an evolving space. And so I think probably it might be a little bit later of how this comes to life, but we're going to see technology have a more active role in child learning, whether that's engaging or adding their own child learning stories, whether it's actually learning how to use technology at a young age. I don't know what this looks like, but I do think it's going to be an evolution that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, absolutely. And look, even right down to, I know one place in Xplor, they're operational, right? They're not necessarily that the children play in. I mean, I know you guys have got playground and things for programming, but it's not something that the children are involved with. I had a centre manager recently say to me, when they do their checks through one place, they engage the children. They teach them about PowerPoints, plugging this. Are they covered? Is this safe? Have a discussion. So rather than make it okay, this is what I have to do without the children. This
Yep.
this center manager has actually turned it around and made it with the children. And
Yeah.
it's exactly the same thing with Explore, isn't it? Like they
Yeah.
don't have to be left out just because it's not um, seen to be for children, it's actually still about them.
Yeah, I think we are already moving to it. In the past, it was like, great, I've done the checkbox for learning, how I've done the checkbox for this, into a symbiotic relationship, right? Where it says, hey, we're doing this together. We're doing learning together. What does it mean? How does that come to life on the device? How does it come to life in reality? To your point around, oh, we're doing the checklist. Let's have the child come along and go, yeah, the PowerPoints are off. The PowerPoints are covered. This door's shut. The fence is closed. The lock's working. Like, children also love to just do what you're doing. Like, they love it. And so how do we create it symbiotic and not just go, oh, I've ticked my checkbox on the screen. That's all I needed to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and that I think is those next steps coming through, isn't it? That we are going to be seeing more engagement with children, like I said, the doing of the learning and the doing, and the being, just the being. It's not
Yep.
going to be compartmentalized.
Yep.
With that. Now, I am very mindful of the time, and I know we talk to you all day. But now, before we do finish up, we like to ask our listeners what wise words or motivational quotes do you have, or they've inspired you, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's just a really simple quote, actually. So you're always content until you compare. And so for anyone out there, if you're listening, just go forth with confidence, guys. Don't need to look at what other people are doing. Run your race. It's only your race. You're always content until you compare.
Oh, look, actually, that's lovely. And I can tell you, we have not had that before. And this is the amazing thing about these wise words: nothing's doubled up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think we've done, I think there's, I don't know, about 50 or 60 episodes now. So pretty awesome that no one's, doubled up on saying. So, no, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time today. It's been fabulous. I love technology. You love technology. And so glad to have you as a partner of One Place Childcare. Have a great day, Jonathan.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you.